The college football playoffs are set. They are set in stone. There is no changing them. There's no going back, no matter how much some teams may want to cry about it, no matter how much they decide that, you know what, it's, regardless of what the outcome was, I'm just going to take my ball and go home kind of attitude. We're going to talk about it and much more here on Rising to the Occasion. Welcome in to Rising to the Occasion. I'm your host, Josh Mahler, joined by Jeremy Russell. We're very excited to get into a very action-packed show because, Jeremy, the college football playoffs are officially set after what was an amazing championship weekend for the most part. Because for me personally, I got to see the two teams I was really kind of hoping would win because it helped my team out one, and so that just kind of cemented Oklahoma where they're at. But obviously, we were talking about all of these games leading up to it. The biggest one to me, man, Indiana making history. The first ever season that they went 12-0. The first time since, and I don't have it written down, that 1960 something, like 1967 or 68, something like that they
Something
won
like
the
that.
Big Ten championship. But the first time ever that they've won a Big Ten championship game, I believe, because their other two were before there was even a Big Ten championship game. Indiana takes down the number one team in the nation to become the number one seed. Indiana's number one heading into this thing, dude. I mean, just how incredible of a story, of a journey, and an incredible job by Kurt Signetti to get his Indiana Hoosiers to this point.
First things first, congratulations to Indiana and Kurt Signetti. I mean, that was absolutely amazing. I mean, just like what we were talking about a little bit ago. I mean, after the game, just for a brief moment, you still didn't even see a full 100% smile on Kurt Signetti's face. I mean, it low-key felt like I was almost looking at Bill Belichick because he doesn't smile that much. But I mean, it was an absolute amazing atmosphere to see Indiana coming out on top. And you could definitely see in the emotion of all the players' face when they were doing post-game interviews and stuff like that. I mean, it was definitely an absolute. I wouldn't say it's a miracle, but it was definitely a blessing for not only the Indiana Hoosiers, but just for the state of the Indiana, just because of how long it's been and what they've had to battle through and just what they've been through throughout this entirety. And correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but obviously when they were talking about the game, that Ohio State versus Indiana and all the matchups and stuff like that. Ohio State was, I believe, it was what 50 or 51-0, obviously against Indiana. Then I mean, it's obviously a long thing that's overdue for Indiana to finally break free and just be able to get on that mountaintop in the Big Ten championship. I mean, that is an absolute amazing thing for Indiana, but I mean,
Yeah, I don't remember which stat you're talking about. I know what you're talking about, but 'cause it's like maybe 51 straight wins or something like that before this
yeah,
one. But I mean,
something like that.
overall, Ohio State overall, like throughout the history of them going back and forth with each other, uh, Ohio State is 80 wins to Indiana's 13.
Mm,
So I mean, it was an incredible feat for them just to win that game.
mhm,
Going throughout this season for Indiana too, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about it, I suppose.
probably.
But I mean, it's just going back to last season, your first year with Kurt Signetti, bringing him in, and we talked about it a while back. How I thought this would be a special hire. I never imagined that they'd be the number one seed going into the college football playoffs or anything like that. I wasn't even sure that they would even make the college football playoffs with Kurt Signetti. I just thought that, hey, this was a good hire for Indiana. It seemed like they went for the fences, and it was a great hire. It's proven itself now, and Kurt Signetti, since coming onto campus, has called out Ohio State and Michigan and has now beat both teams. That is how crazy this whole thing is. Being able to take down the number one team in the nation, beating Ohio State of all teams for the Big Ten championship game. It truly was an incredible moment. And I couldn't believe it. And a big part of it too. So Ohio State, a lot of people are saying, well, if Ohio State would have not shanked that field goal, and it's all in the field goal kicker, but it honestly balances out because, first of all, that would have just tied the game. Indiana could have probably, I mean, they had a chance to go down there and still win it. So that's just a whole lot of what ifs. Not only that, but it kind of canceled itself out because Indiana also missed a chip shot field goal earlier in the game that they should have hit. So ultimately, it just felt like both teams were very equal. And what was weird about it was you could tell that the talent favored Ohio State, but the grit and the heart with the players and with the coaches all lean towards Indiana. I
Hmm.
mean, Indiana just fought their tails off and ended up sticking it to Ohio State. And also, one more thing: did you see beforehand the picks? All four or five guys, whatever it was, all of them picked Ohio State. So Indiana just got to rub that back into their faces a little bit.
Hmm.
Yeah, it just truly incredible game, and it was a very fun one to watch. So 100% history in the making there for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you kind of beat me to it. I was going to actually ask you the same thing if you saw the picks for if they picked Indiana or Ohio State. But yeah, it truly is a unbelievable sight to see for the Indiana Hoosiers. And like I said, congratulations to them for winning the Big Ten championship. That is an absolute big thing for their program. And like you just said, especially for Kirk Cincinnati, I mean, in the period of time that he's been in Indiana, I mean, what more can you really add? I mean, I know there's a few that you can obviously add to your resume, but I mean, like you said, beat Ohio State, beat Michigan, win the Big Ten championship, and uh, that is just unbelievable just for the amount of time that Kurt Signetti has been with the Indiana Hoosiers. But obviously, I know, Josh, you and I can both sincerely talk about Indiana Hoosiers all night long, but I know we
Yeah.
got the rest of the show to do.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
moving
we
on
could
to it,
we could honestly just branch off and make a whole Indiana Hoosiers podcast with as excited as we are for
literally,
just what
dude.
they've been. I mean, it's just an incredible story, truly is. We'll touch on Indiana briefly here in just a moment, but also I think the committee got it right because now you have
Yeah.
at number 2 seed Ohio State, Georgia. At number 3, and then Texas Tech earning their first Big 12 championship and their first playoff appearance, ranked number 4. And so I think that ranking, no doubt in my mind, a lot of people were saying that Ohio State should drop down to number 3. They lost by 3 points in a gutty matchup against the number 2 team in the nation. We talked about it beforehand. I thought no matter how this goes, both teams, if Ohio State wins, they just stay where they're at because it's number 1 against number 2. If Ohio State were to blow Indiana out, okay, you drop them down maybe a little further, like possibly even 5 or 6, just
Something
depending
like
on
that.
how bad that beatdown would have been. But we talked about it. It's either you, if it's a close game, which we expected it to be, then you just keep them ranked where they're at. If Ohio State wins and if Indiana wins, you just swap them. And that's exactly what they did. I think that was the right move. Georgia, Texas Tech also staying where they're at after winning their respected championships as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm in the same boat. I think is a perfect spot for them in the respectable spot that they're in. I mean, obviously, like you mentioned, we were talking about so many different scenarios that we even got some of our faxes mixed up. But I mean, it definitely is a big time thing. I'm just glad to see how everything laid out for the bracket. Of course, there's one particular team that I know I talked about, but I'm not going to spill the beans 100% yet. And obviously, if you tune in to the last episode that we did, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But I'm gonna save all that for not get on my soapbox yet. But I mean, even looking outside of that, obviously, Josh, like you said, moving on to another team for talking about Georgia, for example, like obviously being able to dominate Alabama in the championship for the SEC. I mean, I really thought that it was going to be just a hair bit close, like what we talked about. But I mean, coming out on top 28-7 over Alabama, that was really surprising, and it definitely opened a lot of people's eyes, in my opinion.
That game too, it was more of a domination than 28-7 leads to. And
Yeah,
so first of all, in some regard, it felt like more of a domination. Just overall, it just felt like Georgia was just pummeling Alabama nonstop. But then, on top of that, so there was one scenario with 8 minutes left in the game. It was like 8.5 minutes left. Alabama's only down 2 scores. That's not an impossible task with 8.5 minutes left. You just have to kick it into gear. Your defense has to make a stop. Maybe you can pray for a turnover, but just make a stop and figure something out on offense. Go down there and score. then we can talk about getting a little gutsy when we're within one score with a little bit less time. Maybe you got 3 or 4 minutes left on the clock and you need to hurry up and make a gutsy move then. But with 8.5 minutes left inside your own 15-yard line, Kalen DeBoer decides to go for it on fourth down. It's one of those things. Yeah, if he makes it, then you're saying how good of a call, and if he doesn't, then you're talking about how dumb it was. No, regardless of how that played out, I would have said that was a really dumb call, but you're lucky you got it. But they didn't get it. They turned it over to Georgia with 8.5 minutes left, and now Georgia goes down, scores, goes up 28-7. Instead of just punting the ball away, hoping for something good to happen on defense, and not even just hoping, but just willing it to happen. I thought that was the biggest one. That SEC championship game just showed me that I think Georgia might just run away with the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, after hearing about just some of the little itty bitty things, that I'm like, what are you doing? I kept saying that to myself a lot when I was watching the game, like especially for Kalen DeBoer, like you just mentioned that fourth down situation. I literally said the same thing, like I'm on my mind thinking, are they trying to draw him off? Like, what the heck are they trying
That's
to
what I
do?
thought originally, but then there was also another moment where they called a timeout, and I'm trying to
That's where
think.
I got confused.
Yeah, it might have been that same possession too, where they called a timeout and still went out there to try to go for it on fourth. I'm pretty sure it was that game. I might be mixing it up with the Ohio State Indiana, but still, there was like times where it was like, man, in a game like this, you might need those timeouts, and what are we doing here, blowing them? But yeah, I just thought that to me showed like that was enough to me. We talked about this. If you lose a conference championship, you really shouldn't be punished unless you just get dominated. And we'll talk about another team that got dominated in their conference championship game as well. But Alabama being one of them, they should have been punished for that domination. I mean, you got whooped by Georgia, but it's not just that. You're not getting punished just for that conference championship loss. That's not the only thing that you're getting punished for. You're also tying in the fact that you lost to an Oklahoma team, which is a respectable loss for the most part. Like you should have probably won that game. You almost doubled their yardage, but whatever. You lost that game. Still respectable because they're a top 10 team, but you lost to a 5-7 Florida State team at the beginning of the season. So that now comes back on you when you get dominated in your SEC championship game. And I don't think that's crazy to say that comes back on you all the way at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of expecting it to come back and bite you. I mean, it's one thing like we talked about. It's one thing if you lose by like a field goal or a touchdown, but I mean, 28-7. That's not what I was absolutely expecting out of Kalen DeBoer in Alabama. Like, obviously, when everyone was at halftime, I believe it was like 14. It was 14-0 if memory serves me correctly. I'm thinking, okay, obviously both teams are just getting everything going. And obviously, you and I both have seen enough college games to where usually when you see them come out of halftime, it's going to be a complete different football game when every team can absolutely adjust and they can try and make the right movements and get everything going in the right direction. But in my honest opinion, I didn't see anything out of Alabama's offense or defense. I mean, credit a little bit more to the defense, but I mean, it just seemed like to me that the offense just sincerely couldn't get going. Like I was absolutely bombarded just to hear about how just it was just not like we are used to seeing Alabama play.
And Ty Simpson, a Heisman candidate, just was
Oh,
not
jeez.
playing like it at all that game. It wasn't
Yeah.
entirely on him at all, but he really didn't play well. And then, just like his offensive line could not hold up against
No.
Georgia's defensive front. And yeah, it just really was an incredible event. But Georgia, the way that they dominated, that just how aggressive they ran the ball, it just seemed like every single one of their players refused to go down. Their defense was just bullying Alabama around. It truly was remarkable. And there was times when Alabama was able to find something and find a rhythm, and then they would just have something go wrong. I think there was a couple of times where Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams, both two phenomenal receivers, I'd say two guys that are at least top 10 in all of college football, just let a ball slip through their hands. But let's go on to the Big 12 champs, Texas Tech there at number 4. First Big 12 championship in program history. Absolutely demolished BYU 34-7, which leads me to BYU, and we'll talk more about them, so I don't want to talk too much about them right now. But BYU, I will say, another team that I think first of all, they didn't really get punished because they were already on the outside looking in. So there's not really
Yeah.
a punishment there. I don't know how you expect to move up when you not only lose a game, but you get dominated in that game, just get completely destroyed. 4 turnovers in that game. So,
Mm.
I mean, we'll talk more about BYU, but for Texas Tech, really impressive performance. Their offense performed well, but that defense, man, that defense is real. That defense is why I think Texas Tech actually holds a good chance. I don't think they're a national championship winner type of team, but they're definitely a contender because of that defense.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that defense, you couldn't have honestly. I'm not trying to say you couldn't have had any better of a game, but they played pretty damn good, if I had to say so for myself.
It
I
definitely would have
mean,
been tough to have much of a better game for them.
yeah, exactly. I mean, like their defense was literally, whether it be in the pass situation or the running game or whatever, they were on it like stink on you know what, and they were just capable of just literally stopping it no matter what. And even you look out, obviously on. I was about to say on their wideouts, but you look on their secondary. I mean, like even the middle linebackers and just literally even the deep safeties and
Their
just everybody was
linebackers
just
are mean, dude, with
dude
Rodriguez and then Bailey back there, man.
Bailey.
Like that is just a mean linebacker crew for sure.
Yeah, like that linebacker crew, I honestly kind of refer to them as the Legion of Doom just because of
I
how
like that.
how skelly that they were. I mean, like it didn't matter whether, because obviously you know as much as I do. Obviously, your linebackers are going to be your big communication on the defense, of course. Like that was an absolute beast of a showing for what they were absolutely doing. And I literally tip my cap to Texas Tech because, like you said, there isn't really a whole much more that they can sincerely do to be any kind of a better defense because that was dang near perfect in my opinion.
Yeah, beautiful performance from them. Going down the list, yeah, I think really. So here's where I thought was funny, and we'll talk more about this later on too. So I don't want to keep on jumping ahead of myself. But you've got number 5 Oregon, number 6 Ole Miss, number 7 A&M, number 8 Oklahoma. Up to that point, I don't think there was really any discussion. A few
No.
pundits wanted to throw Oklahoma in there and say, is Oklahoma, because they were right on the verge there, is Oklahoma going to be kind of bumped down to make room for like a Miami, Notre Dame, and Alabama and BYU? So it was kind of like some discussion there, but down from number 1 through 8. To me, I don't think there was any discussion. Those are the top 8 teams. Nobody else deserves to be over those top 8 teams. Personally,
Hmm.
would you agree with that?
100%. I mean, like, no disrespect to Oklahoma. I mean, yes, you may be 10-2, but if someone were to kind of put a 10-2 Oklahoma, say you switch them and Texas A&M, for example. I mean, if I was Texas A&M, I would kind of be a little bit upset because, like, you look at the
Yeah.
record and stuff like that. But no,
Yeah, I
in my
definitely
opinion,
don't
the
think
top eight's
Oklahoma.
perfect.
Yeah, I definitely don't think Oklahoma should be up any higher than 8. Obviously, they
No,
didn't
no.
play, so you can't really move upwards if you're not playing, unless some kind of chaos were to happen above you to bump a team that was above you down below you, like BYU beating Texas Tech. I could have seen where everybody moves up and Texas Tech bumps down, something like that.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
I think. And honestly, the only team that I like, so there are 2 teams in that mix that I think there could be an argument for. Texas A&M did have a very easy schedule when you look at their SEC schedule. Even didn't
yeah.
go against very good teams in the SEC. They went against the bottom half of the SEC, and then on top of that, their big win that was really holding them together was against Notre Dame, which there was a lot of question marks with Notre Dame. Is Notre Dame really good enough to be in? We'll talk about them. And so, then Texas A&M got exposed by South Carolina, somehow pulled it out of their butt and found a way to win, a huge comeback. What was that, like 20, 21 or 28
21 to
points?
21 points, one of the two, but I'm
Yeah,
pretty
just
sure it was
just
21.
somehow coming back in that game to win. And
Hmm.
then against Texas, they got exposed pretty bad against Texas. Got whooped
Yeah.
by Texas. A Texas team who I think you and I agree, and again, we'll get to them a little bit more. Didn't really. I don't think Texas really deserved to be in at 9-3. Do you?
No, I don't
And,
think so.
and so Texas A&M getting beat by a 9-3 Texas team that lost to a 4-8 Florida team, got whooped by Georgia. And let's see, what was their third loss? Oh, Ohio State. So I
Ohio
mean,
State.
they played a close one to Ohio State, and they want to act like that deserves that a close loss is enough to make you deserve to be in. Like, you still lost the game. Are we going to
Mhm.
sit here and pretend like a loss is a good thing just because it was against the number one team in the nation? No, get out of here. Anyways, Texas A&M, like, I could see some argument for Texas A&M to be bumped down or even out because of some people's eye test and strength of record. So I'll hear some of that out. I think they deserve to be there, number 7. They still won their games. You can't really help the fact that when you schedule these games so far out, and in their case, the SEC games are kind of scheduled for you. You just have to handle business with the schedule you're given. And Mike Elko hasn't played his own schedule yet, too. On top of that, and then Ole Miss, there could be a case made that maybe Ole Miss shouldn't be ranked as high because Lane Kiffin left. I could see the argument there. Maybe you bump those teams down, but I don't think they deserve to be knocked out of the playoffs. So
Yeah.
personally, and I think you and I agree, number 1 through 8, I feel like the committee got it 100% correct. I don't know how you change it up any more than that.
No, in my opinion, I'm not saying it's perfect, obviously, but I mean, 1 through 8, you shouldn't change it because this is the perfect way that it should honestly be. And I mean, the last thing anybody obviously wants is a whole bunch of controversy. Whether you get through, obviously, when we talk about the 1 through 4, that's a completely different situation. But like when you start talking about the 5 through 8 spots, like you and I both know as much, Josh. Like once you get into that kind of situation, then there can be some big time controversy for, oh, we should have been placed here, we should have been placed here, blah blah blah. But no, that's the last thing that any of these teams necessarily need for controversy. They just more have to be proud of the fact that they are in the Elite 12, is what I'm kind of calling it as, just be able to make it in the CFP. But Josh, moving on from the last 4 teams here, moving on. I mean, kind of give us the rundown. Obviously, I know it's been out there, but I mean, what do you think of this entire thing running from 9 through 12?
So we'll talk more about Alabama. That one is very
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah.
I think we already mentioned it earlier when talking about them getting whooped by Georgia. It's just the way you got killed against Georgia just tells me you can't mess with the top dogs. And then
Nope.
on top of that, that Florida State loss should come back. And so we'll talk more about them in a minute. So Alabama stays at number 9, even after their big loss, even though there was other conference champions who kind of got punished in some regard. I don't really like using that word because BYU didn't really get punished. They did move down in the rankings, but they weren't in to begin with. So whatever.
Yeah.
But BYU moved down in rankings. Ohio State moved down in rankings, but it's like you can't really count that because they just swapped them with Indiana. That was the rightful thing to do. Is it right to keep Ohio State ranked ahead of Indiana at number 1 over number 2, even though they just beat them? No. So, but anyways, there was some movement from other conference champions.
Hmm.
Virginia moved down in rankings, even and when they lost, and we'll get to that one. So, anyways, Miami sneaks into the playoffs, which then bumped Notre Dame out, which we'll talk to that. And then number 11 was Tulane, which we knew was probably going to happen if Tulane won on Friday in their conference championship, and so that was kind of the lock there. And then when we look at the ACC, there was a scenario where an ACC team is not represented in the playoffs. There was a scenario, and we talked about this: does the ACC even make it to the college football playoffs? Miami ended up notching their way in, but I think it was because of technicality that the committee needed an ACC team to be represented, and they only had one answer, and that was over Notre Dame, which we'll get to. But because Virginia beat Duke, who should have never been playing in the ACC championship game to begin with, but
Nope.
because Duke beat Virginia, Duke was your ACC champion, sitting there at a 7-5 regular season record, 8-5 after their conference championship game. And then Duke said, "Well, hey, we deserve to be in the playoffs, right? Because we won the ACC." Not so fast, my friend. James Madison, JMU, ends up notching themselves up higher. I kind of wish that they were in the side of the bracket where they would play Indiana, because that's Kurt Signetti's old team.
Oh, that would be good.
That would be a lot of fun. But anyways, James Madison sneaks in there at the 12 seed now because of the auto bids, which we'll talk about. But man, I think 9 through 12 is extremely controversial.
Dude, I mean, looking at these four teams, it is it's hot in the bottom four. Like if there's not enough wood in the fire already, I mean, I don't know how much more you're trying to feed into it. I mean, we'll just start off with number 9, Josh. I'll go on my little bit of a off of my soapbox here of a rant. What other team? I'm just going to flat out say it. What other team has 3 losses that are in the CFP?
None of them. And why is our argument against Texas, for example? Who if we're being honest, Texas has looked better towards the back end of their season,
Exactly.
where Alabama seems to have gotten really hot after they had the first loss. And I would be with everyone and say, let's overlook that because look how good they have been since that loss. It was week 1. We do have to have that in mind, but we'll keep that in the back. We'll put a pin in that Florida State loss because once that sign starts to creep up on it on them, like getting whooped by Georgia, then that pin is pulled back out and we take that back into consideration. So if we're leaving Texas out because they have 3 losses, I don't know. It's just there's a lot of controversy with Alabama being in. We can kind of go down the matchups here real quick.
Yeah.
So we'll have Indiana, who will play the winner. Here, let me pull up my bracket too because I had this. Oops, if I can get my phone to work here. I just wanted to make sure that I get the bracket all correct. So Indiana, who will get a first round bye because they are the top 4 seed, they would play the winner of Oklahoma, Alabama, then number 8, 9 seed. That is a tough end of the bracket right there. Tough end. You got Oklahoma, Alabama having to go against Indiana, and I feel like the number 1 team the last 2 years kind of gets the shaft because that's 2 tough teams to play against, whoever the winner of that one is. And then we go to number 2, Ohio State, who would play the winner of Texas A&M, Miami. I feel pretty good about Ohio State's chances there. Number 3, Georgia, would play the winner of number 6, Ole Miss, and number 11, Tulane. Really either one of those, I feel good about Georgia as well. And then number 4, Texas Tech, would play the winner of Oregon and JMU. That's a fun side of the bracket too because I would assume Oregon over JMU, but then Oregon, Texas Tech will be a really fun game to tune into if that's the case. So I'm really looking forward to it. And then your 4 left out were Notre Dame, BYU, Texas, and Vanderbilt. All right, let's get down to the controversy in all of this. And let's start off with Notre Dame. First, Notre Dame, 10-2. Their 2 losses were against Miami and Texas A&M, both ranked up there in the top 10 now. Now, also with those 2 losses, those were the first 2 weeks of college football. And so I can understand the argument that since those first 2 weeks, Notre Dame has looked like a much better team, and they've really been rolling over their competition. And they've had the longest winning streak, and they went on this long winning streak, and they've been doing really good.
Yeah.
And so I am with everyone when we talk about that, but those 2 losses do matter. And they should not have been ranked ahead of Miami. Although the college football playoffs had Notre Dame ranked ahead of Miami every single week of the college football playoff rankings up to this selection Sunday. Was this all just a setup for the committee to just all of a sudden say, oh, Miami, let's do head-to-head now and put Miami in because they beat Notre Dame? Like, I agree. I personally do not think Notre Dame is a playoff-worthy team. I think those 2 losses were against 2 decent teams who I also think are maybe not as good. They're not in the top 4. They're not like the top 5 or 6 best teams in the nation. They're just one of the playoff teams because it's a 12-team playoff. So they lost those 2 games. What's their best win since? USC. Outside of that, they played nobody. You got to tell me that Stanford was a good win? Even Arkansas was a good win. I think Arkansas had 3 or 4 wins this season. So, I mean, just Notre Dame is not a playoff team. So I'm not really upset that they were left out. My gripe is, why on earth did you wait until the last week, the last possible chance to be like, oh, head-to-head does matter all of a sudden?
Like, it's so stupid. Like, the eye test is the biggest thing that obviously gets them, like, all the amount of time and things that they could have waited. you wait until the last week, like you just mentioned. Everybody knew, like, from the very get go, like, what everyone's kind of had the motion, like, what the heck are they talking about Notre Dame? Like, we all know the real kind of situation and stipulation, but they had to pull something, and it definitely is absolutely atrocious in my opinion. But like, even talking about that, like the quality wins and the analysis of the entirety of it, I'll respect Notre Dame. I'll give them that. But coming down to the crunch time to where it's whether it's to get into the playoff situation, no. This is the right thing.
I just don't understand how you can go for 4 or 5 weeks, however long it is that we've been doing the college football playoff rankings.
Mhm.
So 4 weeks in a row. I can't remember exactly how long it's been, but 3 or 4 weeks, 3 to 5 weeks, whatever it's been in a row.
It's been too long, long
You
story
put
short.
Notre Dame ahead of Miami. Everyone said, "Why are you putting Notre Dame ahead of Miami? There's head to
Mhm.
head. Miami should be ranked ahead of of Notre Dame.
Of Notre
Why
Dame, yeah.
is this a controversy?" And but you know what? You did it for 4 weeks in a row, or however long in a row. Why does it change now? That's what I don't understand. I agree with the decision, but
Yeah.
you're saying that you were wrong for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, whatever, however long it's been. You've been wrong all those other times.
Yeah.
that
Like,
that's just crazy to me.
yeah, I mean, like you said, we all knew what the real thing was. Like Notre Dame, you can have your moment of fame to where we're in front of Miami, but we all really know who's in front of who. Like don't get yourself too big of a head just because we all know exactly the real truth is, just because they want to actually get you a little bit of spotlight and just make it seem like that Notre Dame's going to get into everyone's, like, be like a thorn in everyone's side and just make it seem like that they're going to be into the CFP. But reality check, no, they're not. They're gonna be chilling back.
Well, and Notre Dame's response to
Wah,
not
wah,
getting into
wah.
the playoffs: "I'm taking my ball and I'm going home." And then everyone said, "That's not even your ball. What are you doing?
It's never been your ball.
That ball owns to it's owned by the school. You don't get to take the ball with you. You got to keep it at the playground, you idiot."
Mhm.
So, yeah, they end up declining their bowl invitation in protest. Oh, you showed them. Oh, you showed them. How about you prove it by coming out on the field and you hang 80 points on your opponent, whoever it might be. Stop being a little wuss and crying that you didn't get in. I agree that the way they did it was wrong, but I think the decision to put Miami in over Notre Dame was the right call.
Mhm. 100%. Like, I don't know how much more Notre Dame wants to keep crying and doing exactly what they did to when they announced obviously they're not gonna play. Like, if one thing that comes to my mind, we can go over to Pittsburgh, we'll grab some terrible towels from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we can go drop them off at Notre Dame because they can just keep crying all that they want. But all this controversy about Notre Dame, it's it's just so ridiculous. And you've seen it as much as I do, Josh. There's been some more teams that are not wanting to play in the bowl games. Like, I understand that, but sticking on to the
Kansas
topic of
State,
Notre
Iowa
Dame,
State being two of those teams too.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's definitely a big time surprise. And I know like you mentioned, Iowa State. Iowa State's kind of going through a lot right now, but
Yeah, and
n-
I get it, but you still got to go. I mean, why do we have these bowl games anymore? I mean,
mhm,
they don't mean anything to anybody, so let's just get rid of them. Let's just have the playoffs, and if you're not in the playoffs, you just go home because we don't have any meaning to them anymore. Even
mhm,
if you're in Notre Dame's bowl game, I don't know exactly which bowl game they would have gone to. I didn't look into that, but there still are like a number of bowl games that are kind of higher televised games. I think the Pop Tarts Bowl is one of them.
yeah,
Um, there's a few bowls that are still like those bowls that are fun matchups that you still want to go see, because they're good teams that, hey, you were just on the outside looking in. If Alabama, or sorry, not Alabama because they're in, if Texas, Vanderbilt, BYU, and Notre Dame are all four on the outside looking out, and those four end up playing against each other. That's really interesting. That's some fun matchups for the bowl games. But
mhm,
anyways, I know Notre Dame's argument. They're two losses are only to top 10 teams in Miami and Texas A&M by a combined 4 points. They've won 10 straight games and averaging almost 30 points a game. But the thing is, I do think that the resume and the consistency matters. And by eye test, I do agree with by eye test that Notre Dame looks better than Miami. And so that's kind of where I stood that, okay, whatever. I guess if that's what you're going to rank higher is eye test, then put them ahead of Miami. But then all of a sudden in the midnight hour, you literally change your mind and just say, "Oh, I guess maybe we were wrong all along. Anyways, let's just change our mind now." Like just totally backing up. I do think that the head-to-head matters. And so that's why I think Miami should be in over Notre Dame if we're talking about that. But let's go down to Alabama, because I know you and I were talking about Alabama. They've lost 3 games now. And I think you said it just a minute ago. What other team in the playoffs has 3 losses? They had a 28-7 blowout in the SEC championship game. They lost to a 5-7 Florida State team. And then Oklahoma, who they'll play again. And how embarrassing if you go off and play Oklahoma and lose to them a second time this season. I think that this is silly. It's the first 3-loss team to make the playoffs. And I do think that Alabama getting in is a joke, and it just feeds into the whole SEC bias narrative that everyone loves to throw out, because I don't think there's SEC bias as a whole, but then there's things like this that's like, okay, yeah, this is going to be misconstrued as SEC bias. I just think it's Alabama bias.
100%. It's just straight Alabama bias. I mean, like, everyone obviously knows the name Alabama. Like, we all are used to them seeing Roll Tide and all this and that. But not last time I checked, like you just said, who has a 10-3 record besides Alabama? Nobody else. And having them sit at number 9, everyone knows that Alabama's still going to make a good run for it. But what I love to see is Alabama. If this were to occur, obviously only time will tell. If Alabama goes into Norman and gets their booty rocked, I would love to see that. But obviously, like I said, only time will tell. Josh, you and I have been to Norman. That place has been electric. You've obviously been to Norman just a couple more times than me, but we all know the fans will literally be behind everyone's back, and they will be rocking the entire stadium. They might have to bring in some extra supports just for this game, because I know the fans will actually be electric. But like, one other big thing besides going into that, just in general, the conference championship games, obviously, like, the performance should matter. Like, just for the overall atmosphere, like, everyone pays their hard-earned time and money just to be able to actually come and see these guys do what they love doing, that's play ball, and everyone wants to see them make it into the NFL. But like, the overall expectations for this entire situation is, I would love to go and see Oklahoma obviously dominate Alabama, but like, another way that I think about it is, why should a 10-3 team be in the CFP? In my honest opinion, they shouldn't. They should be out playing golf right now, because I mean, all these other teams, like, you see them with 11-2, 12
I think 10-2. I think what's sad, 11-2 with BYU, but then even 10-2 Vanderbilt. I think so. Before the season ever started, if you would have told me that a 10-2 SEC team, I don't care what their logo is, what the helmet color is, what the what size shorts they wear, I don't care. If you told me that a 10-2 SEC team did not make it in the playoffs, I would have told you were crazy, because I thought there was an argument to be made that depending on the case, Oklahoma would have been one of them. A 9-3 SEC team could make it in under the right circumstances. Obviously, with a lot of chaos this year, I don't think any 9-3 team deserves to be in this year, based on how everything's fallen into place. But a 10-2 team, a 10-2 SEC team is being left out of the playoffs, and then there's also an 11-2 team in BYU, which we'll get to. But Jeremy, do you think the conference championship, not just the games, but the performance in those games, should dock you points with the committee if you perform the way that Alabama performed against Georgia?
Like, in my honest opinion, I think so. Just because everyone obviously loves to see everyone ball out, but when you go into a conference championship and you get absolutely mollywopped, and it's not even pretty to see a team get mollywopped. It doesn't matter who you're seeing. Like you see two top premier teams like Alabama and Georgia, and you see you're an Alabama fan. You see your team absolutely mollywopped, and then I have to suffer through this entirety. Like that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to see a grid knuckle bear ball and kind of a game to where it's going to be down to the wire. And I'm seeing this as like how can you get blown out and not take a little bit of more punishment to where you see it come into play? Like Josh, it just kind of baffles me a little bit. Like give me your opinion. Do you think that they should be punished based on it?
I think based on that performance, yes. Now, if Georgia would have won by a field goal, walk-off field goal, then no. Obviously not. You hung in there with a top team, a top 4 team. No,
Yeah.
okay, like you lost, but it was a tough loss. It was a tough fought loss. You get killed. All right, now we have a different situation. It's not even necessarily the 3 losses. It's that you got whooped, and then, like I said, you still have to pull that pin back out and bring back into the conversation that terrible loss against the 5-7 Florida State team. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's where I stand. Alabama should not be in the playoffs.
Nope.
And now I know that it's going to be, if they end up beating Oklahoma and going on, like, oh, well, you said that they didn't deserve to be in the playoffs. Just because you won one of the games in the playoffs doesn't mean you deserved to be there in the first place. So, finding a way to win in the playoffs. Last year, I don't think Ohio State deserved to be in the playoffs last year. Mm-hmm. But you know what? They were, and they ended up winning the national championship. Does that mean that I was wrong, that they didn't deserve to be there? No, I don't. I still don't think beforehand. Now, with hindsight, you can say a lot of things are pretty much of a complete moot point. But anyways, going on to BYU, they were overlooked. And first off, they were never ranked in the top 10 despite being a one-loss team. They're a Power 4 team, and the entirety of the season, they kept on being counted out. I think they had a tough one. They lost the Big 12 championship 34-7 against Texas Tech. That's now twice that they've gotten killed by Texas Tech and just made an embarrassment. I understand the whole strength of records thing. I think that metric is kind of flawed. And the reason being here, let me pull up BYU's ranking real quick. Or sorry, their schedule. Because the reason why I think that the strength of record thing is just kind of flawed in general is because here's who BYU played. Portland State.
Who?
That was their first game of the season. Portland State, an FCS team who ended up going 1-11 on the season. Congratulations. They played Stanford. What did Stanford end their season on? Because they're always terrible. They ended 4-8. So they played Stanford. They played East Carolina. They played Colorado, who I think was on a 3 or 4 win season this year. West Virginia, who was really bad this year. They played Arizona. That's a reasonable matchup. It's a decent matchup, but they're not like a contender or anything. They're not like a playoff contender or anything like that. That one went to double overtime. They played Utah.
Okay.
That's a reason. Utah is a reasonable opponent. They played Iowa State, who kind of had a down year this year. They were just okay. I mean, that's just not great. That you don't go off saying, we beat Iowa State. They played Texas Tech, the first good team, solid team that they played all year. They lose 29-7. Then they play TCU. Again, TCU, down year, nothing good. Cincinnati, mediocre year. UCF, bad year. Then they play Texas Tech again in the Big 12 championship, and they get completely dominated. So what that tells me is the only time you played a team that actually was playoff worthy, you got completely killed. You couldn't hang around with Texas Tech, who, if I'm being totally honest, Texas Tech is not really like they're definitely not the best team. Like by eye test, they're not the best team in the playoffs. They're not even the best team in the top 4. I would say they're the 4th best team. So you're getting whooped by the 4th best team, and I think that's rightfully so the 4th best team. I don't know. I just think that's crazy. That BYU. I didn't think that BYU really deserved to be in. Although with the 11-2 record, they probably, I think they had more of a case than Alabama, Miami, or Notre Dame. So
Yeah.
it's hard for me to say that they deserved it because you can't get whooped in the Big 12 championship game and then expect to be in. That's kind of where I stand with BYU. I don't think they're a playoff worthy team, but I don't know. I can see the argument to be made there.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat a little bit as you, Josh. Like I'm kind of on the fence of seeing BYU. I mean, in the words of Travis Kelsey, know your role and just learn to shut your mouth. Just because you think that you can be the top dog, but like you listed off the schedule and who they played, when it comes to big time moments, you didn't find that big time moment. You got your butt whooped. Like you can do all that you want. Like I understand the reason why I say I'm somewhat glad to see BYU in this position is just because of the record for being 11-2. Like now on the other side of the thing is like you can talk all you want, but I wouldn't say you got in this on a four leaf clover of a luck straw, but I mean like you got to think about this kind of situation. Like I would like to see you actually run your mouth and say that we can come out and be a 10-2 team or an 11-2 and face top dominant teams week in and week out and show a true performance. But well, like you said, when it comes down to crunch time and you play someone that has a big name to themselves and you go on the road, whether it be that or if you're in your home stadium and you get absolutely pummeled, I mean, you need to learn to back your stuff up more than anything. But I mean,
They have a chance to prove us wrong by beating Georgia Tech in the Pop Tarts Bowl. And if you can beat Georgia Tech in the Pop Tarts Bowl significantly, and I know it's a bowl game, so we don't have all of our players, and neither but my argument to that is neither do they. So
yeah, they don't.
just if you can come out and dominate in the Pop Tarts Bowl and beat Georgia Tech, then okay, maybe I was wrong. Because BYU is one of those teams where I sympathize with them. I think they deserved it over a few other teams that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But if we're in the grand scheme of thing, we really don't. Anyways, let's move on to Duke. Duke's
Geez.
argument to be in is that they had 7 ACC wins. They were a conference champion. They had a better conference record than many of the at-large teams. And then they only lost to 3 teams. Sorry, they lost, not only just they lost to 3 teams outside of the conference, which is obviously why they shouldn't be in. But I think conference champions should deserve some respect, but not when you're a conference champion who should not have been in that position in the first place. They ended up beating Virginia 27-20 in overtime, their first ACC title win since 1962. Congratulations, sure, I guess, but you were in a place that you should not have been put in. The ACC tiebreaker system was broken. That's why you were there. That's why you don't get rewarded. Yeah, they suck. They're not a good team. Virginia had a bad game. And I mean, Duke played better than Virginia. I don't want to take that win away from them, but they shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely not expecting that out of West Virginia. I thought it would definitely be a little bit of a tighter game, but obviously I will eat my words. Congratulations, Duke. You definitely did play a really, really good game. But the one thing I do at least want to get this off my chest, like, yes, I agree with you 100%, Josh. Conference champions deserve some respect. I 100% agree. But you also got to think for one thing here. Would you want to have a 5 total losses undermine like the championship credibility in that kind of an aspect? Like that's the where I kind of get like, yes, you still deserve a little bit of respect, but you got to think about some of the things that are on the other side of that category that like do we give them a whole bunch of respect? Do we kind of still give them the little thorn in the side? Like, what are we kind of doing here? But I mean, it's great to see for Duke pulling it off for the ACC. But I mean, there's still a lot of things that Duke could definitely do better to make themselves a better team. But I mean, I'm kind of at a loss of words just especially for watching West Virginia's performance. Like, don't get me wrong, it was definitely a great sight to see them come back, obviously lay in the game and go into overtime. But unfortunately, West Virginia wasn't just able to pull it off. Then
Virginia,
Duke,
not West Virginia.
yeah, I keep saying West Virginia. I keep
I
saying
keep on
West
saying
Virginia.
Virginia Tech whenever I'm talking about it too. So it's like all the Virginia teams kind of merge
Yeah,
together.
yeah, you just kind of get them merged together. But I mean, just still on the overall aspect, I mean, congrats to Duke just for being able to get to 8-5, obviously this year. But I mean,
Enjoy your conference championship with an asterisk next to it. So that's all I've
yeah,
got to say. Now, the other
yeah,
team that feels like they have an argument to be in, I think you could also say Vanderbilt's another team, but I'm not really going to
yeah.
argue too much for them because I do think that the Texas head-to-head has to play into it a little bit, and the score is not justified in that Texas Vanderbilt matchup where Texas really owned that matchup. Now, Vanderbilt came back to make it really close, so I guess you have to give them some credit there. Anyways, um, Texas does have like a pretty good argument because they have the eye test, but you know they also have the big wins. They have three top 15 wins against Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. They're only they're only two of their only losses were to Ohio State and Georgia. So the two teams that they lost to, they lost by 7 points against Ohio State, one score against Ohio State in Ohio State. It isn't a bad loss, and so we can say, okay, we can look past that. Now let's look at the rest. The way you lost to Georgia was you got completely whooped.
Hmm.
You got smoked. You didn't
It
even
wasn't even a
belong in that
game.
game. And
No.
so it's not that you lost to number 3 Georgia because let's be honest, if it's number 3 Georgia, okay, you probably deserved it. Like you probably should lose to number 3 Georgia if we're playing it
Yeah.
by the rankings and playing it by Vegas. But you got whooped. You couldn't even cover the spread, and you want us to believe that's supposed to be a good loss. So you got
Get out
whooped
of
by
here.
Georgia, and you lost to a 4-8 Florida team.
Huh.
I don't care that it was on the road in the swamp. You really want to sit here and cry to me that the swamp is any good when they're playing Texas? I mean, it's not a tough environment anymore. So I mean, I think that those are bad. Now I do think some quality wins should outweigh a bad loss if we're talking like one bad loss in there. So like let's say that if they kept it close to Georgia and they covered the spread, like I said, now I'm not sure what that spread was in that game anymore. But if they would have covered the spread in that Georgia game, or just keep it close, keep it respectable, and the only bad loss on their record was 4-8 Florida. Okay, you had some quality wins and you kept it close to number 2 and number 3 in the nation. Maybe we can talk at that moment because you did beat number 7 Texas A&M, number 8 Oklahoma, and they beat number 8 Oklahoma by double digits, and so I have to give them
Hmm.
that. And then you beat Vanderbilt too, another top 15 team. So ultimately though, I just think you're 9-3. I agree that Texas seems to be, if we're talking 12-team playoff as a whole, Texas does feel like a playoff type of team. But when we're talking about all these other teams that actually have a true case to be made, who are you going to replace with Texas? That's my only thing. I'm
Hmm.
not going to argue that Texas doesn't have an argument to be made because they
Yeah.
do. They have some good wins. They have a good resume. But they also have two very ugly losses. You got whooped by Georgia. Don't give me that we lost to number 3 and you're really going to penalize us for that, or we lost to number 2 on the road. You're going to penalize
Get
us for
out of
that. No,
here.
you got whooped against number 3 and you lost to Florida. Those are two bad losses and one overlookable loss against Ohio State. That's my only thing against Texas.
Yeah, my biggest thing against Texas, obviously, Josh, it's one thing obviously for having the losses to to Oklahoma and Texas A&M, or I get that, or not the losses to Texas A&M, but having a loss to Ohio State and Georgia, excuse me. Um, I get that. Obviously, you look behind that, but you have 3 losses, and 2 of them I can get, but the third loss being to a 4-8 Florida Gators team.
But like I said, I don't even get the Georgia loss because you can't just get completely killed by Georgia.
Yeah, like one thing I also will give a little bit of Texas the benefit of the doubt is obviously you look at the other teams and they've been in their respective conference for a while. I know this could probably mean a whole lot of smoke up a lot of people's butt, but I mean obviously Texas is still just getting, I wouldn't say just officially into the SEC, obviously, because this is their second year. Correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, that they're being the SEC.
Mhm.
Like, obviously, it's a whole different caliber than what they were previously in. But still, I mean, everyone had a lot of hype between when it was time that Texas came in, and the same with Oklahoma. Obviously, you see one team that is definitely making up to the hype. And I'm not giving anything against Texas because they do have their moments. But it's coming down to the point to where something's got to happen for Texas, and obviously it can happen relatively soon here. Hopefully next season. Obviously, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not. That's not making me a Texas Longhorns fan, Josh. Don't worry
I'll
about that.
beat you up.
Yeah, I know. There's a reason why I'm wearing the good shirt instead of the ones that are actually not playing in the playoffs.
Well, so
But
here's the thing with Texas. So of their 8 conference games, 4 of them, 4 were against the bottom 6 teams in the SEC.
mm-hmm.
That's a pretty weak conference schedule. Now,
Right.
of those 4 games against the bottom 6 teams, they went to overtime against one of them, Mississippi State. They barely beat Kentucky. And I'll look up that score real quick because I can't remember exactly what that was. But the overall score was 16-13 in overtime. So they needed overtime in 2 of those wins against the bottom 6 teams
Mm.
in the SEC. And another one of those, the third one of those 4, was a loss to Florida. So, I mean, they have good wins, but they also have ugly wins, and they also have really ugly losses against Georgia and Florida. We can sit here and try to say that Georgia wasn't that bad of a loss because it's Georgia, all that. It's a good opponent, but it was still an ugly loss the way you went down. You have to be
Yeah.
competitive against those opponents. But yeah, I don't think that 3 losses are going to get you into the playoffs in this format.
No, it's not.
All right, let's talk about some of the proposals on how to improve the college football playoff. I'll start off with the one that I'm the biggest on, and especially after this year and seeing all of this mess. Now, we could talk about some of the teams that were left out, and I'm going to pull this up so I don't get this wrong, because in the rankings, you have number 11 and 12 is Notre Dame and BYU. Those are your first 2 out.
Okay.
They are in the top 12. They are ranked in the top 12, but they don't get into the playoffs because of the auto bid system. Now, when I sat here and said I don't think Notre Dame and BYU deserve to be in the playoffs, that's considering the fact that they have to be ranked in the top 10. Now, if we are taking the automatic bids, the auto bids out of it, because I don't think that you should be locked in just because you're a conference champion in the 12-team playoff. Now, if we want to restructure everything, we can talk more about that. But the way that it is sitting right now, because here's the problem. 8-5 Duke had a chance to get in. If we're talking just auto bids, 8-5 Duke had a chance to get in over teams that are better and ranked higher. And then we also look at it, and Tulane and JMU are in over BYU and Notre Dame. Do we really think that Tulane and JMU, regardless of how good their seasons were, they're conference champions, congratulations, and I'm not trying to take that away from you, but do we really think that they deserve a national championship playoff spot over Notre Dame or BYU?
No.
Or even go 2 more down the line. We just talked about Texas or Vanderbilt. Do they even deserve it over them?
Survey says no.
So instead, because of the auto bid system, because of the way that this system is set up, you have your 11 seed is ranked number 20 and your 12 seed is ranked number 24. Get rid of the frickin' auto bid system. I think it's stupid. I think it is ridiculous. The ACC proved it. And now the group of 5 teams. We have 2 group of 5 teams in the playoffs. Neither one of them deserve it.
Nope.
I'm not even saying my opinion. My opinion, I don't think they deserve it, but I'm just saying based on the playoff committee's their own opinion, because they ranked them at 20 and 24. They say that they don't think they deserve to be in the top 12. Why the heck are they in there?
They got to fill somebody's spot, and they got to make it seem like they want to get They want to seem like they want to get out there. But I know you and I can obviously keep going on and on and on about this because I 100% agree. Literally, the one thing that they sincerely need to do is just get rid of this automatic bid crap, just because it is absolutely ridiculous. The way that you and I have talked, like we've talked about this numerous times. The way that it should be, like for a solution, is just literally having the straight seating based on rankings and the no guaranteed spots. Just
Yeah.
because literally everyone literally deserves that rightful shot to get in it based off of your performance, and obviously looking at how it goes through you on the season. If you have a phenomenal season, obviously it shows that you should be able to get a good opportunity to get into it. But if you have a bad season and it's just not going to go your way, then I'm sorry, it's just not going to be the way that it's going to be for you.
Well, and so like if we were doing just a straight seeding based on the rankings alone, like we're talking about, then we have Notre Dame and BYU at 11 and 12. Those two get into the playoffs, which we just talked about. We don't think they deserve to be in the playoffs because of where everything falls out and because of the auto bids, because they would have to be ranked above number 10, Miami, or all of that. So I would say I think maybe they have the case over Alabama. I think Notre Dame has a case over Alabama. BYU doesn't because they also got whooped in their conference championship. But regardless, if we're talking top 12 teams, they do deserve to be in the top 12 because does Texas or Vanderbilt have much of an argument over 10 and 2 Notre Dame or 11 and 2 BYU? I don't think they do.
They don't.
I think
They don't.
if we were just to take it the straight seeding, I think I agree wholeheartedly. With the number 1 through 12, I just would bump Alabama down to number 12. That would be my only adjustment. Number 1 through 12, I like it. Perfect. Move Alabama down to number 12, and that's your playoff seeding. That would be perfect to me. And I don't think there's any argument for anyone on the outside looking in. Vanderbilt has a little bit of an argument, but you lost to Texas, and so Texas is ranked ahead of them. The head-to-head matters. So there's a few things that you no matter how much you expand. I think a lot of people try to say expand the playoffs, and that's going to fix it. I don't think that's it.
No.
I think expanding it, you're just going to cause more chaos. No matter where you end it, you can have 32 teams. The 33rd team will think that they deserve to be in. Look at the basketball tournament. Look at March Madness.
Oh, jeez.
That's the perfect example. The people who are ranked number 65, 6, and 67 think that they deserve to be in. It's always that way. So it's always going to be that way. How about this? Don't rank until the end of the season. Because what we have with, for example, Notre Dame. When Notre Dame went 0-2, would they really have still been ranked at the end of, towards the end of the season when if we didn't have a preseason rankings in week 3, would Notre Dame be ranked at 0-2? No, they wouldn't. So, they were ranked. I think Alabama was ranked in the AP poll, even though they lost to Florida State. And if we just had no preseason rankings that bled into the actual rankings, then if we just wait until the end of the season, we can look with hindsight and say, hey, remember when we thought Arkansas might be a good team? That was a stupid decision. Who's a better example? I think Florida State. Remember when we thought Florida State would be a good team because they beat Alabama week 1? That was a dumb idea.
That was funny.
There's plenty of other teams that we could probably go down the list and talk about that with. But I think just don't rank teams until the end of the system or until the end of the season. And I think to pair with that, if we went back to a BCS style computer system that ranked it, because you don't have any bias, you don't have any human element, it's just all data driven metrics, and that's it.
Yeah. And that's the best way that I sincerely think that it should be, because like you said, it's not any way, shape, or bias. It's all going to be sincerely one way, and it's just going to be the computer. You can have all the sayings in the world that you want, but it's just going to keep getting to that benefactor to where everyone's going to have a controversy to where that they didn't make it into the situation. But you can only bark so much before you start biting. Obviously, I mean, Josh, there's just so much that can definitely get going on along in this type of a situation here. But I mean, just even looking keep going on. Obviously, the biggest thing I would definitely do is shorten the bye week gap. obviously having 25 days between the conferences and even looking into the championships and the quarterfinals, like there's a lot of things that can't necessarily be done, but like the one big solution that I can sincerely see, like having that first round, like and like in the second week of December, like the 14th or whatever, and then moving it obviously like to the quarterfinals on the 21st, then even pushing it like to the semis, just obviously in the beginning of the year, because obviously having it over Christmas time, that's definitely going to be a big time and a big benefactor. But I mean,
Yeah.
another even big. It's just definitely got a lot of big things to contribute about, but I mean, there's only so much that you definitely do, in my opinion, Josh.
Yeah, and how about this too? I was just talking about this earlier today. So if we were to break the conferences back down into just 10 teams per conference, that means
Mm-hmm.
you have 3 out of conference matchups. And I
Right.
honestly don't care who those out of conference matchups are. If you want it to be some FCS team, I don't really care. Just you have to make that decision that do you want to face, if you're Texas, do you want to face Ohio State knowing that you may lose? But also just understand that high risk, high reward, because that high risk, you might lose. And then towards the end of the season, you now have 3 losses instead of 2. Or if you win, there's a high reward because you beat number 1 Ohio State, number 2, at the end of the season, Ohio State. So I think so. Anyways, back to my point. Break it down. I don't care who your 3 non-conference are, but then you have 9 conference games, which means you play everyone in your conference. If we have 10 team conferences, you play everyone in your conference. That means there's no way that you have some screwed up tiebreaker system like the ACC had, because you
Yeah.
played everybody in your conference. The head-to-head is going to catch up to put the top 2 teams in there. And
Yeah.
then from there on, when you have 10 team conferences, the conference champions then that conference championship basically acts as your first round of the playoffs. The winners of the conference champions go into the actual playoff bracket, and then we start the playoffs from there. I don't know how many teams you want to include in this, how many teams you just say, sorry, you group of 5 teams, but you're not in this anymore. You have your own tournament over here and basically create another division within the division. I don't care how all of that is sorted out, but I think 10 team conferences, you play everyone in your conference, 3 non-conference games, you decide the national championship based on conference champions. I think that's the best system. It'll never happen. That's the best system for me.
Yeah. I mean, in my honest
Basically an
opinion,
NFL model, honestly.
that's what I was to say. It's almost kind of like an NFL model, like the way that you kind of described it.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I don't know what more you can really agree with, but obviously something has to definitely get going in the right direction to where we can put all this controversy behind us, just because there's so much that should be behind us. Well, the biggest thing that we definitely want to see is just watching more college football, and just we want to see the excitement. But
Yeah.
like even going on to like head to head, like it should definitely matter. But you obviously know much as I do. The context is definitely going to be the biggest key for all that type of situation.
Well, for
But
example, Georgia, Texas. The head-to-head should matter there. And so you say, oh,
hmm
okay, well, they lost to Georgia. But then you have to put the context together. They got whooped by Georgia.
yeah,
So that's where that one stands. But
yeah,
then also, I think the conference championship losses, maybe they shouldn't be penalized, but I think we should also make the stipulation that, hold on just a second, you should be penalized if you get dominated in your conference championship. BYU, Alabama, Virginia. I'm looking at you guys. Virginia, you didn't really get dominated. You just got beat by a lesser team. But you
no.
know what? If you get dominated, you should possibly you face the possibility of being punished. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like even like going to a different extent, Josh. Like whether it be conference play or preseason, but I mean, it is kind of real to where it bleeds into week to week rankings. Like
Yeah,
we've,
the bias definitely gets into it, especially with the
yeah,
human aspect of it.
yeah, yeah. The bias definitely gets in. It's getting more transparency. Like just it just needs more transparency just in general from the committee is my honest opinion. Just because
Yeah.
you can definitely see so much into like this aspect, but the committee can only obviously do so much. But I mean, there's just so much controversy and transparency that definitely need to be going on in my opinion, Josh.
Yeah, I think you have to find some sort of fix, and obviously we're not going to get any answers. But regardless of the case, the college football playoff is set We're going to have a very fun playoff. I think overall, the committee got it right. They just, again, the two group of 5 teams shouldn't be there. If we're being honest, we should just take them out, put Miami and Notre Dame and BYU in there, and then we're all fixed. That's how I think I look at it, and I'm sure many will disagree, and many others will probably agree.
Yeah.
So, anyways, the college football playoffs going to be very fun. First round is December 19th and 20th. I'm really looking forward to it. We will preview those games as we get closer to it and probably talk about it as we get closer to time. But until then, we'll just have to sit here and wait and speculate and argue even more about how the playoffs should be set up. But anyways, I'm Josh Mahler. This is Jeremy Russell. We'll catch you guys all on the next one.